I'm Steve with a Z. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Give me a big thumbs up here, as everybody else says, because, it's YouTube and you got to beat the algorithms. But anyway, this is part 2 of a 2-part series. I'm talking to Sean at Nissan about allocations for the new Nissan Z sports car. Let's get into it. So you're being judged on Turbo Ultima sales. So you heard it here first. If you want to know how many cars are going to be available at your local dealership, call the sales manager, call the general sales manager and ask him, listen, I'm just curious, but how is the stack ranking your dealership versus everybody else on Turbo Ultima sales? That's classic. I love it. Okay, so if people want to get on your list, and this is you've invested, it sounds like, your time, your effort, it's your passion. You're a Z owner yourself.
Yes, I have a 2008 350 Nismo.
Awesome. So don't call Nissan and ask for anybody else but Sean. Talk to Sean. Don't be the guy who sidesteps Sean because you think you're being cute. Call Sean. Sean's got a list. He will gladly put you on the list once he finds out what you're looking for. He'll give you the caveats that we've talked about here of like, hey, nothing's set in stone. I'm not I'm not Nostradamus. I can't predict what's going to happen with the shipping container shortage or the shipping issues or the chip issues or what have you, both of which, by the way, I think will be somewhat passed by that point, but we'll see. Anyway, people can call you and get on this list. And you'll call them back at some point in the future once you have all of your information squared away from Nissan and an ordering platform, basically, to place orders and know how many you're going to get. And at that point, you'll be able to put money down and you'll get a slot.
Definitely. And that exact reason is why I'm doing it this way. I've been, honestly, if we want to get real honest, I've been doing this pre-order and talk list since the Proto was released back last year in August. And I thought it was really funny because 2 days after the Proto was actually when I got my first pre-order. But everybody has gone, well, how much is it? All of this, how much do I need to put down? And there's a reason that I've been holding off on that is because, again, I want to make sure that everything's streamlined. And the last thing I want to do is, have this huge issue. I think the Supra is probably the best example of where this was a giant issue. Is people start to pre-order it, they just put a whole bunch of money down, and then when it comes time to be like, okay, hey, guess what? You're next up in line. We're going to get your car here in a couple of weeks. The price is going to be $15,000 more than what you expected, and everybody's losing their mind about it. No, definitely not taking any money until you, the consumer, know exactly what it is that you're getting, whether we can or can't get your car the way you want it, or better yet, exactly what it's going to cost you, because we'll know as well.
Well, it's interesting because just to educate people, if they were to call you up and say, hey, it's 15,000 over MSRP, you have to come out of pocket the 15 grand because they can't roll that into a loan, especially if you're trading something in that you're already back on by a few $1,000, which usually is the case. You're going to be stuck. And I think that's why what you're doing is you're doing it the right way by not obviously you're setting a cap at 5,000 and not taking any money until we get closer. And it's a substantial, it's not like $500 gets you entry. Like, you've got to put down a little bit of money with you guys, which I respect, because I think you need to make sure that people are interested. A lot of dealers will ask for a $500 non-refundable deposit, which means they keep it if you don't take delivery. And It doesn't sound like much, but it's $500. So, anyway, so is there anything that I've missed here?
There's just a couple things I'd like to touch on. Specifically, there's been a lot of talk, in the forums and groups and things like that about these very unique cars, pricing, and some other things. So the first thing I'd like to touch on is things that I do know that are for certain. Let's talk a little bit about special orders. So you mentioned, this gentleman that wants this red Z with the blue interior because he's really big about making it a Spider-Man Z. We actually will have the ability to order that car. I know that there's been a lot of haze about, can we actually special order cars? Yes, but there's a small caveat with it. So with the way Nissan currently has it set up, let's see, yes, special orders through Nissan is that every dealership is allowed exactly one pre-order per model per month. So if you do
so it's
one
a slot.
yes, for those specific cars. Now, for things that are a little less unique, like let's say we were talking about, well, I'd like to get illuminated kick plates, or I'd like the interior lighting, in the floor wells, or any other special things. We may be able to pull those from the production line and request those cars. But those very special, unique cars that are going to be ordered, we are allowed to do them, but it is only one, which is, again, the reason that I know that where I have things set up may seem just a little bit steep, but it's just because I want to ensure that you get your car and that everybody else behind you doesn't have to wait. Because here's the thing, if that gentleman decides, you know what, no, never mind, I don't want that car, we have to wait a whole calendar month before we can order the next person's car.
Yeah, but and that doesn't sound like a big deal. Right? It's only a few weeks, but the problem is you sell, 30 different models, and somebody's going to walk up and want a specifically ordered Pathfinder, and that is going to suck up that allocation. So if you get 12 custom build allocations a year, that really is not very much. No. So yeah, especially when you're selling 100, 150 cars a month or whatever it is you guys are moving, yeah, that gets to be problematic,
well, here's the thing is that we do have a small workaround with that. Now, this has taken a lot of effort, and you talk about me spending my own personal time. Believe me, I've spent a lot of time trying to make sure that the launch of this specific car goes as smoothly for the consumer as humanly possible. Because the advantage, and this is something we discussed, the advantage of working in the auto group that I do is that being one of the largest privately owned dealerships in the country, in fact, of the 44 stores that we have in the OR Auto Group, I think it's 26 of them, 28 of them are Nissan stores. So from those 28 stores, depending on how things go over time, if we get 7 cars and we have 2 other stores in the city, they each get 5. Guess what? We have 17 Zs just in the market alone. Now, granted, fighting with other dealerships over inventory has been just as hard as customers trying to get them, but it's something that we have at least a little bit more wiggle room versus, trying to go out of state or, completely out of the auto group itself. We have the ability to secure more of these cars than select other dealerships do. And the good news is the fact that we are privately owned versus, again, I mentioned Triumph down in Dallas being a big corporate dealership. It gives us a lot more freedom about how we do things. We don't have to answer to a board of directors that have never been in the store. I mean, the general manager and owner of my store, he comes there just about every day. Like, I get to see him, I get to work with him. And so getting to work intimately like that, so high up the chain, allows us to better smooth the process so that when it does come time, everybody can get them quickly and efficiently.
So, Sean, is there anything else that you want to educate people on that we haven't talked about yet?
Kind of like want to touch on just a hair bit was, we were talking a little bit about Nissan's turbo marketing, and mentioning that there is in fact a turbo Altima. If you get the chance, take a look into it, because again, going back to Nissan's absolutely atrocious marketing, this is a prime example, because it's called a VC turbo, like a variable compression turbo, where it's effectively, it's a manner in which it allows it to pre-spool. So you can build boost and actually hold turbo pressure. It's a really wicked, interesting design. And for a little 2.0, I think it makes 230-ish horsepower, if I can remember those numbers off the top of my head, which comparatively
it's like 236 and 267 foot-pounds of torque, and it sounds like that's where the torque is coming from, is the technology I think you're referencing.
Yeah.
But those are different turbos than are on the VR30, right?
100%. This little turbo setup is actually highly experimental, and even talking with the technicians, they love the motor. You know, the Nissan Master Techs that work in the back. Just incredible technology that no one really knows about because Nissan won't advertise it properly, anyways.
But it's kind of like, you know, and it's like people's expectations of things are weird. Like I rented an Altima with a CVT in it, and it was the S model, and I drove it on the Taconic Highway in New York, which is infamous for its curves, and it was awesome. I loved it. And then I went and read the reviews of it, and people were like, ah, rah, rah, rah. Like the you know, the press at large liked it. They didn't love it. I thought it was terrific. And like the CVT was the least of my concern. I actually kind of dig it. It was a little rough around the edges, but you know, I don't know. People freak out over the weird. And that's the thing with this car. People are freaking out. Like, I don't get the LSD in the sport model. And you're like, no, it's not meant for you.
Maybe. There has been talks about the possibility that the sport might actually come with, you know, an LSD. By no means is this confirmed yet, but there is at least talks about possibly trying to put it in. But again, here's the thing that I really wish people would understand about this car. I understand that they're not quite marketing it the way that I wish that they would in terms of the packaging and how they are organizing the car. From my understanding, everything has been correct up to this point, minus the performance. The way that I understood when the Proto was released that this was supposed to be launched is we had our Sport that was going to be the base. You had your Performance that was going to have all, you know, your performance goodies, the bigger brakes, the Sport Tune suspension, all of that. And then there was supposed to be like a technology package or a Sport Plus, just like in the 370, you know, you had, you know, the Enthusiast, the Touring, you know, and there was like 4 or 5 different packages. And then you had, you know, the Protospec. But they ended up just kind of squishing everything together in the Performance, where the Performance, you're going to get all of the tech package included.
Well, I mean, I think that was personally, I think that was the right move, because most people, unless you're going to go take the car to the track, and there's a fair amount of those people that will do that. They don't, you know, most people are going to want all of that stuff. And this car has to appeal to the masses. Like, people forget how many women bought the Z32 because it was sexy. Yeah. It was a lot back in the day, because, you know, I was alive then. When that car came out, it looked like nothing else on the road, and it was universally attractive, and a lot of women bought it, and a lot of women drove it. Same thing with the 350, and the same thing, especially earlier on in the run with the 370. There was a lot of female buyers, and you've got to cater to that demographic. If you're making a car, you have to sell units. Like, at the end of the day, you guys are a family-owned and operated dealership. You're in business to make money. I mean, that's the way it goes. It's to be that, you know, you're in the car sales business. Same thing for Nissan. They've got to be able to make some sort of a profit on the car, or at least crack even, you know? And besides, you and me both need an R36, so we better sell the hell out of the Z. Exactly.
Exactly. Oh, but let's just set everyone straight and really put their minds at ease with this. You know, like I was talking, Nissan's had a really bad history with some of the things, and everybody wants and wishes and holds true to the idea that the 90s Nissan that everybody loved would come back. And this, I genuinely believe that this Z car could be that renaissance happening again. Okay, I know when you were talking with Dan, you were kind of bashing on the Supra a little bit, which, don't get me wrong, I almost half support. I love it. I think the car is great. I actually had the privilege of driving one. They're phenomenal cars, but I do think that Toyota dropped the ball with the whole identity of the car. They could have called it something else entirely, and everybody would have loved it. But the fact they put the Supra badge on it with the BMW architecture just completely alienated, you know, the enthusiast community. And with the Z, we're getting, you know, base or a sport model manual at $40,000 with 400 horsepower, with the manual everybody wanted, and a car that is 100% going to be comparable to everything that's currently in the market. And plus, I mean, if you look at a Supra, you know, the the 3.0 that's in it, I mean, those cars MSRP at 55. So for 15 grand less, you can get more power and arguably, personal opinion, a better platform to build on, because we've had, you know, the 3.0 and the Q60. since 2018 now. So we have time in this. And as just a company as a whole, I mean, looking at even some of the more boring models, I guess you could say, with the Rogue, I mean, it looks phenomenal. The new Pathfinder has been knocking it out of the park. It's not exactly what everybody was hoping for with the old Pathfinder, but until Nissan decides that they want to release the Xterra back again, we're probably not going to see that. But the new Frontier, absolutely killing it. Even cars as bland and boring as the Sentra, you know, everybody's familiar with just, you buy a Sentra, why? Because it's a Sentra and it's cheap and you know it's going to work. And even the new ones, like everything in the lineup looks incredible. And you can feel it with people that come in. This is the first time that people are starting to get excited about not just buying a car that they're going to drive to work, but buying a Nissan, something that they're actually going to love.
Have you gotten out everything you want to get out?
I mean, pretty much the only thing I guess that I have left is like the speculation zone, as I was thinking of it in my head. You know, everyone's been asking pricing and things like that. The only thing that Nissan has had for certain is MSRP of the Sport manual is going to be around 40,000.
Well, so in my mind, here we'll kind of go back and forth on this a little bit and try to figure it out. So in my mind, if that's a stick shift car, at 40 grand, your automatic's going to be 43, right? Am I wrong?
42, 43, yeah.
So that puts and that's the performance. So that puts the next model up probably, I mean, you have to create some gap. Otherwise there's no reason to have two models, right? So I think your baseline is going to be about 47 grand for the next model up with the 6-speed, and then 50 for the automatic. And then I think that's what you're looking at.
And then with the Proto is going to be really hard. Just everything you've said has pretty much been the speculation that has seemed to proven itself fairly accurate. That manual performance is probably going to run somewhere between, I was given just a little bit more leeway, about 46, 47, and then the automatic about 49, 50 with the Protospec, I mean, 55 plus. We have no earthly idea what's going to be going on with that, because that's a 240 limited production unit. I mean, that is going to be a really, really interesting place to see where Nissan puts that. And on the rumor side of things, some cool things that have came up and have been half true, half not true about the new Z. The first one, when they released the Proto, there was a lot of talk going on about interior options and the fact that you'd be able to match your color with the exterior color of the car, which has been half true for the most part, because we saw the yellow in the 240 Protospec. And then we saw the blue come out with the Siren Blue that they released with the production model. And it's not confirmed yet by any stretch of the imagination, but there is talks about red also being an option, which would be a logical step. I mean, we've seen it in Nismo trims, and I think that would be logical. But there's still talk about the possibility of being able to see gray or white, possibly, kind of small little accents to match the interior. So remaining very hopeful for that. The second thing that's been super polarizing with the community as a whole has been the front end, which I am ludicrously happy with the changes that they made on the production model versus the Protospec, because with everything just being that gloss black, it did give it kind of a void feel. And thankfully in the production model, giving it a little bit of a metallic gray to it really helped show that there is some depth to the front end. And by the way, if you see it in person, beautiful, 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 beautiful. But there's also talk about, just like on the 280, you know, it had that chrome kind of grill bash bar that was, you know, mandated for safety reasons at the time. But there's talks that there's a possibility from the factory that could be an option at order. And then, you know, along with some various other things, I mean, there's some cool things that could be coming out of this, and we just can't wait for the catalog. Definitely can't wait to see what's going on with it.
Yeah, you just don't know. I mean, if anybody was ever paying attention to the C8 launch, it went about the same. Like, they showed the car, there was a few details missing. He didn't even know all the colors right away. Like, it was basically the same type of launch. And I think Nissan followed Chevy's playbook to some degree with the launch, and I think it's panned out equally as well, if not better, than the C8 launch. Who do you, as a as someone who sells cars, who do you anticipate your buyers to really end up being? And I'm not talking about the people who buy the first 50 of these things from you, but as time goes on, what other cars are they? Do you think they're going to be looking at the Mustang and comparing the two, or the Camaro, whatever's out at that point from Chevy, and comparing the two? Or do you think this is a standalone deal that really stands on its own 2 feet?
As it currently stands, with the way that the market is right now, with the cars that are already on the market and the cars that will be by the time this car hits the market, I genuinely don't see a single competitor. The Supra is way too expensive, even though it's the closest thing we have to benchmark it to. You might be able to make arguments against like the STI or maybe even like the Civic Type R's. You know, those are really cool cars, but if you really boil down to it, for a car that's almost the same price, I mean, the Type R is making 305 horsepower, which my 2008 Nismo makes. Like, it's none of these cars are really hitting the same echelon. So yes, you are going to have to compare them to a Ford Mustang. We're not even going to talk about Camaro. Chevy 100% dropped the ball with that car. They are doing miserably. But in terms of competitors, really the Mustang and kind of the Camaro, that's it. There's nothing else in the price point. There's nothing else in that power band. And when you compare a Z car to a domestic car, it's not about power, but when you have a foreign car that makes just about the same power as a domestic car, but has that refined drivability that, you know, Japanese cars are so loved for, it instantly takes the win.
All right, that's it with Sean about the new Nissan Z Sports car allocations. Man, we covered a lot of stuff in that interview. So thank you if you've watched this far through both series. I really, really appreciate it. You should probably go ahead and subscribe if you're a fan of the new Z car. This is the channel that's going to give you the latest and greatest up-to-date information along the way as we count down the months until we can actually buy one. So please give this video a like, a thumbs up, because I guess dislikes are gone. And if you sub my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. Everybody have a great day. Enjoy the ride.